Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fan Appreciation Month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm checking out a horror comedy from 1998. That movie is Die Hard Dracula. Now, I know when I first heard that title, when I first read that title, I should say, the first thing that popped into my head was going to be some kind of like a Die Hard style vampire film. And that's probably what a whole lot of you thought the moment that you saw the title of this video and you clicked on it. Unfortunately, if the back is anything to go by, this is not that. No, this honestly just seems to be a rather bland standard vampire film. And the only other information that we get on the back here is that this film's director is best known for working in films as a stuntman. And I then looked into it, and his entire directorial output is made up of this and nothing the fuck else. Which comes off to me at least as somewhat of a bad sign, but who knows, this thing might actually be kinda decent. The only way I'm gonna find out, though, is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm gonna do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Die Hard Dracula. So, Dracula's casket's just flying over the countryside. And that's a terrible composite shot of the casket flying over the countryside. And the whole thing, guys, I should mention, is shot on video. I wouldn't mind that if it wasn't ridiculously blurry video. And perhaps maybe if the audio were louder. Because, guys, you hear how quiet this kind of sounds? I have my volume at max. Alright, and apparently the casket is coming in for a landing in what looks to be a dungeon somewhere. Oh, and I just saw the fishing line that was holding it up. That was really cute. God, guys, this thing has just started and it already kinda sucks. You know, guys, I was just sort of thinking about this. I have kind of a stupid question. So, he decided to leave the country because he was so friggin' distraught about the death of his girlfriend. Even though before he left, a shooting star landed on her casket at her funeral. A funeral he didn't even bother to attend, I should mention. Which somehow magically resurrected her, because fuck you, that's why. So, first of all, not only is he a shit boyfriend for not going to his, I guess now, ex-girlfriend's funeral, but nobody bothered to inform him? Yeah, you know, she just started fucking, she started fucking knocking on the casket lid and is back to life. No, of course not, because he has to go to Europe, because reasons. God, I'm really starting to despise the writing in this thing, guys. So I was wrong. It wasn't his girlfriend who was resurrected by a meteor hitting her casket. No, it was this woman who lives in a European country. Perhaps maybe, just maybe, I would not have made that kind of a mistake if the actresses didn't look so similar, or they might actually even be the same actress. I'm not so certain. And perhaps maybe if the people in the funeral scene even tried to put on some kind of an accent to show us that they're not in the US, you know, that might actually have helped. However, considering the fact that I've seen nobody put on any level of a decent accent in this film, I guess maybe I'm asking a little bit too much for them to put on an accent to differentiate their characters from fucking, you know, Americans, you know. Oh my god. I'm really hating this, guys. Did I just see Dracula literally suck the blood from a rare steak? And he also reacted poorly to garlic bread. Well, that doesn't surprise me. They're playing the whole vampire garlic thing, but still, never thought I'd see a movie where Dracula is sucking the blood from a goddamn steak. That just looked kind of fucked up and stupid. So Van Helsing and our American hero here, traveled all the way from Dracula's castle back to this fucking bar. It apparently took them all day, but they're still wet from landing in the lake outside of Dracula's castle. So that means that night either falls really fast here, or they got soaked real bad. That, or and this honestly is just the more realistic option. This movie is just complete shit. I kind of wish I could stop watching it. Well, guys, that was Die Hard Dracula. Jesus Christ, did that ever suck? Oh my god. Okay, I'd like to mention that not only was this thing directed by a, stuntman, but said stuntman also wrote this script. If that's anything to go by, if I've learned anything from this film, I don't think I'm ever going to trust another screenplay that's written by a fucking stuntman until one of them shows me that they know how to write an interesting story. Good Lord. Okay. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything to really talk about with this movie in terms of writing, without just me going into excessive detail, and then we'd all be here for 20 minutes as I just sit there and bitch about the god-awful writing. Why don't we start with character depth? There is none. I swear to God, guys, almost every character can be summed up in, like, one word, one sentence. Like, Steven's entire motivation is that he is American. And he mentions this at least 4 times, especially when talking to Dracula. It's like he says, Americans are tough, and then he punches Dracula in the face and doesn't do shit. And it's like, I bet that you've never fenced against a fucking, American. And then he proceeds to get his ass handed to him in a sword fight. Not a fencing match, a sword fight. A really terrible sword fight, but I'll get to the stunt work in just a minute. So that there's Steven. Dr. Van Helsing's entire thing is he hunts fucking vampires. Nothing else. There is no more depth to him. We have, God, I can't even think of her name. The woman that Steven falls in love with. By the way, I mentioned that she looked very similar to the actress who played his girlfriend. Yeah, I mean the girlfriend at the start of the film. Yeah, that's because it's the same fucking actress. Which is probably why I thought that it was his girlfriend who was fucking resurrected when the meteor hit the casket. God, that was so fucking dumb. And again, none of that has helped. I mean, or rather, the confusion has helped by the fact that during that scene, nobody bothers to put on a fucking accent. But that's acting. Let's continue to focus on writing. Well, we can sort of bang on this whole meteor resurrection thing. So, shortly after his girlfriend dies, Steven sees a shooting star, and he makes a wish on it. And said shooting star is actually a meteor, which lands in the middle of this European country, Moravia. And it sort of slams into the casket and then vanishes, and then the woman inside the casket is brought back to life. I'm not even going to begin... I can't begin to go into detail as to how fucking stupid that is. Let me think. What else was there to talk about in terms of writing? They kind of sort of play fast. They kind of play fast and loose with... vampire fiction, in the sense that vampires can totally be out in the sun, but they can't be exposed to direct sunlight because that would actually damage them. And it's physically impossible to jam a stake into their heart or to shoot them in the heart with a silver bullet, because apparently, at least in Dracula's case, his heart's like floating in his chest cavity, so you never can kill him. And they try everything else. Cutting off his head, setting him on fire, blowing him up, none of that fucking works. Spoiler on that. So, I don't know what can kill a vampire. I don't know if in the world of Die Hard Dracula anything can kill a vampire, because Dracula basically continues to God mode his way through this entire film. No matter what they fucking try, nothing seems to work. Silver barely fucking damages him. Crucifixes only just kind of sort of burn him slightly, at least burns the bottom of his shoe if he steps on one. Just nothing here made sense in terms of their type of vampire lore. They made no attempt at trying to explain it, and the whole thing just feels incredibly fucking lazy. In fact, lazy is probably the best way to sum up all of the writing here, because not only, guys, are our characters ridiculously shallow, where we honestly have a dentist whose whole gimmick is that he stutters. That, honest to God, is that he's a dentist and he stutters. And his stutter, I'm going to jump to acting for just a sec on this stutter. I know I complained about these stuttering scenes in A Fish Called Wanda because they went on for far too long and the humor kind of died very, very quickly. The difference here, though, is that the stuttering in A Fish Called Wanda was incredibly realistic. It totally was. But this guy sounds as if he was looking at the script and counted exactly how many letters are there for the stutter, and then very slowly pops them off. So it basically is stuff like, well, what do you do about this vampire? It does not sound realistic at all, and you know, again, that is acting. I have a whole lot to say about acting. But yeah, none of our characters have any kind of depth. Our dialogue sounds terrible. This movie claims to be a horror comedy. The comedy really doesn't kick in until the second half of the film, and at that point, none of the humor is funny. None of it here is even going to make you smile. None of it here is witty. None of it is clever. None of it works. At least none of it worked for me, guys. The writing here was hideous. And of course, with hideous writing, oftentimes comes hideous acting. And oh dear shit and Christ, have we ever got bad acting in spades. Now, most of our cast are supposed to be European, and they're supposed to be from, I'm going to assume, I don't know if this is a real country or not, a country called Moravia. Actually, I'm not sure if it's a country or if it's a village. They never really specify. But anyway, so all of them are supposed to have some kind of like a faux Eastern European, or, well, they are all supposed to sound Eastern fucking European, because they're supposed to be very close to, if not inside of, Romania or other such places. The problem is nobody bothers to actually put on a fucking accent long enough to make it stick. And when they do, it basically is just, they try to put a slight bit of accent on O's and R's and then nothing else. I have heard 6-year-olds pretending to be vampires put on better accents than what you hear in this film. Now the standout is Dr. Van Helsing, who is supposed to have been fighting vampires in this village or in this country for his entire life. He has no accent at all. The actor was too fucking lazy to even bother with an accent. It honestly is kind of jarring when everybody else is at least trying and failing at a fucking accent. And what the hell is the name of the guy who played Van Helsing? It was Bruce fucking Glover. He just goes, no, fuck it. I don't have to have an accent because I am Bruce fucking Glover. Yeah, well, dude, I actually have read the credits that this film tries to give you, and I don't even know who the fuck you are. Perhaps maybe if you learned how to act, people would know who you are, and then you could pull this sort of shit off in movies that are, well, more recognizable than this. My God. So, yeah, so we have a bunch of people who are trying and failing at accents. We have one actor who is too fucking lazy to even bother. The only one who actually seems to keep a constant accent is Dracula. The problem with that is that Dracula also has a habit of grumbling out every single one of his lines. Now, this is partially because they had to dub in every line of dialogue Dracula has because of the fangs. Because when you have a set of fangs in your mouth, you sound absolutely derpy and stupid. So they then had to loop it in later. And then when he talks, it is just this very low, grumbly voice. And there is really no effort to even match what his mouth is saying. Yes, and I'm even trying to match the accent. Fuck you all. In fact, actually, that accent even sounds better than what he pulls off here, and it's infinitely better than what all the other actors try. Wow, and that accent I tried was shit, too, on top of that. Wow. Anyway, so they have to loop in all of his dialogue. The problem is that very rarely does what he say match match what he said on set. So yeah, we even have that as a bit of a problem. I'm gonna jump from acting, because really, guys, the acting is just wooden and shit, and the accents suck from top to bottom when actors actually try to put on a fucking accent. Let's talk about special effects. I do have to talk about the vampire fangs. It would have been nice if Dracula's fangs would have stayed, you know, if his fangs would have stayed consistent across the entire film, because the first time that we see him with his fangs bared and he's going after this woman by a friggin' like river or a creek or something, his fangs look almost like carpentry nails. And then later he has more, you know, standard, just regular friggin' like canines, except kind of longer. And then in the final act, for whatever baffling reason, he has 4 fangs, which honestly kind of sort of leaves a massive plot hole in the fact that when he kills off the dentist, spoiler warning, he kills off the stuttering dentist, the dentist was able to pull one of his fangs, which is why he only has 1 hole in his fucking neck. And then suddenly in the next scene, he has 4 goddamn fangs. That means that since the dentist only had time to pull a fang, there should still have at least been 3 holes in his fucking neck. But of course, that is just me looking at this movie and honestly trying to talk about problems that I'm probably the only human being who cared about those problems. Jesus, God, nobody cared about this movie, guys. All right, what else can I talk about? Well, since that counts as makeup, let's talk about Dracula's makeup. Dracula has at least 4 different makeup sets. But this actually kind of makes sense, because when Dracula is at full strength and it's night out and, you know, he's had plenty of time to rest, he has absolutely no makeup and he looks normal. If he is weakened and he hasn't had a chance to drink and the sun is out, he's bloated, he's fat, he's got this giant rubber thing on his face which is supposed to make him look haggard and old and wrinkled, and the problem with that is that there's this massive seam right here where the fucking thing ends, and they didn't bother to blend it in because everybody in this film is a lazy piece of shit. What other special effects can I talk about? Well, why don't we talk about the flying effects when they aren't terrible fucking composites. I'm talking about when they have to hang Dracula off of fucking wires, which you see once as he's hovering in front of a window. It would probably have looked better if the wires weren't hanging his cape like this while he's in the fucking window. It looked really fucking terrible. There, guys, are just a lot of problems with this thing in terms of fucking special effects. Everything else is either terrible C, you know, G, what little CG is in this film. Composite shots that just look terrible. There is one shot where Dracula morphs from bat to human, and it's just a real standard it's a real standard morphing effect. It's probably the best fucking effect shot in the entire movie, and it's something that anybody with about 5 minutes of special effects experience could easily fucking whip up. So yeah, guys, the plus side is they were able to at least get the most basic shit down and make it kind of work. Camera work. Well, this whole thing was shot on video, and normally I don't fault a movie for that, because you sometimes have to do what you have to do with the, you know, budget, you know, given. You sometimes have to shoot on video. Problem is, when your final video is this blurry in certain shots and then looks almost high def in others, that makes your film look cheap and shitty. It also doesn't help that the first like 20 maybe about 20 minutes of Stephen going to fucking Europe as he's slowly heading to the country, village, whatever in the fuck Moravia is. You know, and he's basically like sightseeing around, you know, Europe. It basically looks almost like home movies, and then they occasionally splice in a shot of Stephen like standing on a bridge or tipping somebody or looking at a map or climbing into a carriage, and the whole thing is padding. And it's really boring padding, and nothing in this film happens until he finally gets to, the bar, which apparently is the only building in all of fucking Moravia outside of the dentist's office in Dracula's castle. Those are the only 3 buildings you will ever see in this entire film once he gets to the mystery location of fucking Moravia. Now, while I'm on the subject of Dracula's castle, I'm going to talk about the sets. My fuck. I've commented in the past about poorly done dungeons, specifically when I was talking about the movie Bride of the Monster. And I talked about how the back wall of the doctor's lab just looks terrible and cheap. I want you to imagine an entire dungeon which looks that bad. I have seen middle school plays with better looking sets than Dracula's fucking castle looks. At least the shots that are not of an old fucking European castle. At least those look decent because it's an actual goddamn castle. But everything else looks like total ass, and it looks so cheap. You can see seams on the walls where you will actually see like one of the giant cobblestones on the wall. It suddenly gets cut off, and then a fresh one starts because there's a big fuck off seam there. And they didn't bother to try to match everything up because naturally that would take effort. In this movie, effort was nowhere near this goddamn movie. The sound mix here is sort of quiet, and I'm talking everything, guys, which means actually that it could easily be just that the fucking disc was coated in kind of sort of a janky fashion, so I can't really fault the movie on that. The music, well, the music is mostly fucking classical music, and that is totally fine, because at least that's halfway decent. It's really sad, guys, when one of the few positives I have is the soundtrack, and it's because it's almost all classical fucking music. So yeah, guys, when all's said and done, am I able to recommend Die Hard Dracula? No. Fuck no. If you find this thing somewhere, if someone has this thing on, like, YouTube or Vio or any of the other, like, websites that are still floating around, don't fucking bother. If this thing is on Netflix, do not bother. You can probably buy this thing on Amazon for next to nothing. Please, for the love of all that is good and holy, don't bother. This movie is shit from start to finish. It claims to be a horror comedy. It is neither frightening or funny. It's just boring, stupid, lazy, and cheap. And there's no way I would ever recommend this to anybody for any reason. Now, Die Hard Dracula came off the Amazon wishlist. The person who sent it in was a YouTuber by the name of Ratchet. It was of Ratchet Command. Please, guys, by all means, head over to his YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/user/Ratchet Command. Dude, I thank you, because I was curious about this, because I had read on a ton of different websites that this thing was amongst one of the worst movies ever made. And while I will not say that it's one of the worst ever made, I will say it is certainly shit. So I am able to at least agree on that, and I wouldn't have known if you hadn't have sent it in, and for that I thank you. Once more, guys, that is youtube.com/user/Ratchet Command. Now, oh, Jesus, God, I feel completely drained. Oh, wait, I forgot another plot point in this movie, which was probably them attempting and failing once more at being funny. Do you know how they all find out that Dracula is a vampire? I will tell you, because he orders his fucking steak rare. Honest to God, that actually is a point in this fucking movie. I'm going to assume that it was them, again, I'm going to assume it was them attempting to be funny, but it wasn't fucking funny. It was just stupid. Oh my God. I'm just going to go get some fucking sleep. This movie, guys, was so boring, I can feel myself kind of sort of drowsing off a bit. So I'm going to go and crash, and then when I wake up, maybe I'll throw in, something decent. I'm actually looking at my Blu-ray shelf thinking, you know what, guys? Frighteners. The Frighteners is sounding really good. So I'm probably going to go and crash for about 2 hours, wake up, and then I'm going to go watch the fucking Frighteners. Anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.